I debated whether or not to go with the sermon topic of theology, given everything that's going on around us, because there's certainly a number of issues to address, as a scan of the headlines reveals, all of which feel more urgent than the pluralism of Unitarian Universalist beliefs. We're in it for the long haul, though, and as Natalie Sokovia, Executive Director of the Indigenous Peoples Water Protector Legal Collective, observes, hope is a sacred fire, but keeping it alive takes hard work. Unitarian Universalism is a religion, and First Parish is a faith community in that tradition. Here we tend the sacred fires of hope, of resilience, of compassion, and of courage, so as to renew our capacity to live our values and faith in the world. For that, we need to nurture our souls, and to do that, we need to root ourselves in what we hold as sacred. And for that, we need not just a wide, pluralistic theology that feeds our individual souls, but a deep one that will sustain our communal spirit. This leads to some questions. Is there such thing as a Unitarian Universalist theology? What do Unitarian Universalists believe? Can we believe anything we want? Is Unitarian Universalism really a religion? To answer these questions in short order, it's complicated. Unitarian Universalist theology is diverse and it is inclusive. But that does not mean we can believe whatever we want. And yes, we are a religion, even if some you use are individually uncomfortable with that word. We cannot shy away from being a people of faith right now, and we need to live that faith out loud. Theology is the study of religious practice, faith, and experience, or how we make sense of, honor, and practice what we hold as sacred in our lives. Unitarian Universalist theology has long been wide, meaning diverse and inclusive. We are open, theoretically, to different experiences about the sacred and the divine, as well as the range of religious traditions. I'm going to do a little poll here. You can raise your hand as often as you wish. You don't have to have just one answer, and if you don't want to participate, you don't have to. But who among you considers yourself an atheist? An agnostic? A theist, not specific kind, but a theist. Who among you resonates with Buddhism? Hinduism? Humanism? Christianity? Judaism? Islam? Paganism and earth-centered traditions? Here's a good one, Unitarianism. Universalism? So you see, we have some diversity here, not only among ourselves, but even within ourselves, right? And that's what's lovely about our tradition. Unitarianism and Universalism both have their roots in the Protestant Christian tradition, actually in heresies that go back to the beginning of Christianity. After Jesus' death, his disciples struggled to figure out who he was to them and how to embody the embodiment of God's love that they felt when he was alive. And in the early years, there were all kinds of different Jesus communities, emphasizing different parts of his life and his death and his ministries and his teaching, it took a couple hundred years, but ultimately Emperor Constantine saw an opportunity to use this new religion to support his empire and gathered all the church fathers in 325 at the Council of Nicaea to come up with a single creed, which they did. And all challenges to this creed became heresy. But those stories and interpretations and heresies never went away. And when the Protestant Reformation began in 1517, they all came out of the woodwork. The Unitarian heresy, as the name suggests, challenged the doctrine of the Trinity as the only interpretation of Christian faith. As Francis David, the Unitarian author of the Unitarian Theologian, whose reading Elaine led this morning, who founded the Unitarian Church in Transylvania in the 1560s, preached, God is one. He also preached religious tolerance and the right of conscience in belief within Christianity, including the idea that Jesus was only human. Universalism, on the other hand, challenged the doctrine of salvation. They were Trinitarians who believed that God so loved the world that God would save every soul, regardless. Jesus wasn't killed because God demanded redemption for human sin, they believed, but because Jesus' message of God's love for all, most notably for those on the margins, threatened the Roman Empire and the Jewish elite. Over time, both Unitarianism and Universalism transcended their Christian-only roots. The freedom of conscience meant that Unitarians accepted people who brought other theologies and experiences to the table, like the Transcendentalists in the 1800s, whose theology centered on the natural world, the influence of the Eastern religions, and on the individual experiences of the sacred. Later, in the early and mid 1900s, ethical humanism and atheism. And then in the 1900s, later 1900s, earth-centered traditions. Universalism went through a somewhat similar process, although it remained more wedded to its Christian roots than Unitarianism. And the merger between Unitarianism and Universalism in 1961 was not always an easy one. And many Universalists felt that their tradition had been subsumed by the Unitarian side. Indeed, there was a greater emphasis on the freedom of belief. And this often got translated as, UUs can believe whatever they want, and furthermore, no one should say anything in worship that might impinge on my beliefs. The danger of this, of course, was creating a religion centered on individualism, where one's own experiences became the measuring stick for all truth. The other danger is that worship services, where the attempt to welcome all could easily slip into offending no one, risk becoming shallow and, well, not religious. We risked lacking depth. As a Unitarian Universalist for my whole life, over 60 years now, I've sensed a theological shift, more recently toward the Universalist side of things, in the 2000s when several crises challenged the dominant Unitarian theology that put human beings at the center, affirming the ethical progress and goodness of humankind. 9/11 raised questions about the reality of evil, and was there room in our Unitarian Universalist theology to tackle theodicy, questions about why bad things happen to good people. Then came a spate of terrible mass shootings, like at Sandy Hook or Mother Emanuel Church and the Pulse nightclub. As Unitarian Universalist voices from the margins, UUs of color, women, LGBTQIA plus folks, people with disabilities, people from poor and working class backgrounds advocated for their experiences and spiritualities to be centered and heard. And as young people spoke up for worship and rituals that were more embodied and spoke to their souls, Unitarian Universalist spirituality had to expand beyond the head to feed the heart and the spirits as well. And our Universalist heritage, with its emphasis on spirit and on love, divine or otherwise, offered a theological path. This is why we call ourselves a living tradition, because we are constantly learning and evolving. Our religious pluralism serves us well. I like learning from other religious traditions and from modern poets and writers and scientists and theologians within and beyond Unitarian Universalism. I like that we don't have to all think alike to worship together, that we can celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, theology, and experience, and that we covenant to learn from one another and openly explore the depth and breadth of our many wisdom traditions, that we strive to embrace our differences and commonalities with love, with curiosity, and with respect. But we need depth as well as breadth. If we are indeed seeking community, seeking belonging to something larger than ourselves, then we need a theology, a sacred fire to gather around for inspiration, for comfort, for hope, for courage, a prayer that holds all. Unitarian Universalist theology is rooted in covenant, not creed, not like the Nicene Creed. Covenant, which is the commitments we make for how we will accompany one another here and beyond our sanctuary. The values which we will strive to embody in the world is the heart, the depth of our Unitarian Universalist theology. For it is not so much about what we believe, but how we live in relationship with our fellow human beings, with the creation, and with the sacred that matters most. To worship means to lift up and name that which is worthy of our deepest loyalty and commitment, worthy of our lives. Religion, sharing its root with the word ligament, means to rebind or recommit ourselves to what is sacred. Faith means trusting in our deepest commitments to what we hold as sacred, to bring into being the vision of the world we hope for, even in the face of adversity and challenge, even when it seems it's not going the way we want. We can have different beliefs about the existence of God or a divine presence. We can be inspired by different religious and spiritual traditions and practices. We can have doubts. We can have questions. We can change our mind. We do not need to think alike to love alike. We can have a pluralistic view of theology. At the same time, though, underneath all this, we need to have a shared religious depth that matters. It isn't just about what we individually believe, but what we communally commit our lives to, what values we practice in the community and on behalf of the world, how we tend our sacred fire. When I struggle to end a sermon, like I have with this one, Diana will tell you I was downstairs in the classroom trying to finish this morning. It means I have too many ideas that I want to share all at once. So here's what I want us to take away this morning, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it's really important. The wideness of our Unitarian Universalist theology is a good thing. but it is not the end-all and be-all. A true religious community is not grounded in making each individual person in the pew or online happy all the time, hearing what they want. Especially now, we need to commit to the theological depth of our faith to meet the moment. It's not just about us. It is about our neighbors at risk. It is about our planet at risk. It is about future generations at risk. It matters not only what we individually believe, but what we communally commit our lives to. Tending the sacred fire of love and living a prayer that includes all.